Close. Commissioners? Yes. We'll go ahead and call the Ellis County Commission meeting to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Donna, please call the roll.
Commissioner Butch Schleier.
Present.
Chair Dean Hazelhorst.
Present.
Commissioner Dustin Mock.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Order of business this evening, any changes? I do have one executive session. Anything else, fellow commissioners? None. Next item, consent agenda items A through G. I do need a motion.
I'd make a motion we approve consent agenda items A through G as presented.
Have a second?
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. Down. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries 3-0.
You want the minutes approved May 6th.
That's all right, bypassed them, didn't I? We have one set of minutes to approve, May 6th, 2019. There were some changes made. Did everyone note the changes? All good?
All good.
Stand approved as presented. Thank you, Donna, for keeping me on ball. Issues from persons not on the order of business this evening? Seeing none, move to the monthly financial report. Everyone have a chance to review?
Reviewed it.
Butch?
Yep.
Yeah.
Looks fine.
Yeah.
And good?
Everything's fine, yep.
Courthouse presentation update. Guy Winhouse and company. Looks like we get a movie.
Guy Winholz, Chairman, Ellis County Courthouse Preservation Committee.
If the public would like to see, you're more than welcome to come up and stand over here too if you'd like to see what he's going to talk about on the preservation project as it comes to a somewhat of an end, or not really an end, but we're gaining. Go ahead, Guy.
And along with me is the Vice Chairman, Donald J. Waldschmidt. He joined our group at the inception of the committee, and his dad is known for laying the capstone on the 1942 courthouse. So we had several people with a lot of links to the history of this, and I won't go through the whole list, but and one of them had a grandfather, and her own father were commissioners for the district over there, Caitlin Philp. First off, and I don't want to forget this, there's so many people to thank, but I have to pay tribute. Thank you, Mike Leiker, for your help in getting this populated onto the screen. We've got some pictures. We'll go through them rather quickly. And then I also want to thank Lori Dreiling for her participation in this too. I want to thank Bill Ring and the Ellis County Public Works Department and their guys. You'll see a picture of them pulled up here. You may have seen a couple of these before, but I got the more interesting ones towards the tail end, which is at the point now that we have finished the phase 2-3 combination, in which the deck is now finally finished. And you'll see actually right now what you're viewing. Make sure I didn't forget anybody else. Oh, and Bill, please extend that courtesy to Kurt Hoffman. He's been so instrumental too in running the county crew that did a lot of this preliminary work on the courthouse as your in-kind services. The picture you're seeing now is the deck, the deterioration from 75 years, the cracks and the crevices. The joints here because of settlement pronounced. And during the course of the last year and a half, you could go up there every 4 months and you could just see the continuing point, at which point someday those walls may have to be attended to, otherwise they would fall. This is a view of after the county crews had taken up the you know, the original 1942 stone. Here's another view of that. Here's a long view. You can kind of see that foundation from when they had the vestibule in there for the air barrier back in, I believe, the 70s. Here's your Ellis County crew proudly working on the restoration project. Kurt Hoffman had left, and they're identified there. Here they're in action, taking up some of the first panels. They were rather easy to take up, so they weren't fixed and solid like some VA tiles might be on a floor. Here they are again, working. And they would take the old ones that were big enough to perhaps salvage if needed, and were put on pallets and stored at the county shop area. Here's a forklift taking up a pallet load. This is a local contracting firm that we hired to then get into the subfloor of that, of the subdeck, the concrete subdeck, which is settled over the years. Thick, it was pretty thick. In some places it was 8 to 10 inches packed on top of sand. This is a gentleman, a subcontractor to the contractors. He was from out of town, and he was doing the chopping with a stone cutting saw. This is a picture of a boom lift, a pump truck. This pump truck was the use of donated by the Mr. Unrein from a local company, Gemini, and they went to work on this on a Saturday morning. Here we see the boom on a Saturday morning, about 7 o'clock in the morning, over the courthouse. This is, whoop, back one. There's another picture of concrete pumping for that project. In-kind services amounted to quite a bit when you get down to it for people that have donated time and labor and materials. This is a 44,000 pound, which is 22 tons, one of 2 granite blocks that were brought in from the original quarry of 1942. I had told that it's 2 tons less in weight than the limestone that Pete Felton used for the Monarch of the Plains, so that tells you about how immense and heavy that must have been to bring in here. These are after the fabrication by Kansas Granite at Ellis. These are just some of the pallets that were of the efforts that they did. A lot of time to cut those things down. This is a snow deck. This was here in just January alone. Weather was never our friend through the whole process. We couldn't get Ellis County Public Works to do stuff. We were always rain and delays and everything else. So, but we persevered. This is a saw, a small saw that they have over at Kansas Granite, and that's what's used to cut the limestone. The hard limestone that is found here for fence posts. And so those are all cut and ready, stacked, and they'll be in the final phase of fixing up the granite. I'm sorry, the limestone that's peeling and deteriorating. This is the installer at left, and Jeff Wolf of Kansas Granite. The first load of was put on the deck right away, so they could just work from that and not have to carry them up the steps. They start at the center and they work outwards, north and south. Here they muscle probably about a 2 foot by 2 foot stone. They're 2 inches thick, much like the other times. Here's the owner of Blue Stem Granite Works, and that was John Pancoast. And here they are, kind of just about done with the project. Here they are done with the project, did the grouting, beat the weather on that particular situation. And here they are. I didn't pester them too much, but I just wanted to document this. You know, we've we've seen two pictures, early pictures that Ed Akey took back in 1941. And so if anybody's going to look back on this as some historic moment, they're going to see a wealth of pictures. And here's the crew indulging me one more time. This is what we're faced with now, the final phase, and it's to take care of the chipping and the scaling of the limestone that is currently there. Here's an edge. This one has actually been replaced while they were doing the deck to be able to make that corner, so that one is taken care of. We identified probably about 60 of them that are in dire need. Here's the left front step base. That's where the 1898 courthouse, the stone from the Ellis County 1898 courthouse, we're going to have a stone put in there commemorating that. And you can just see how it's just splitting and splitting, and just the rain, the water, and the freeze-thaw. This is a picture of the courthouse. This is a picture, actually, the courthouse is now lit at night. It used to be in the old days, but this is LED lights, so it's very efficient, and that will now light up the courthouse. This is night security. I say this kind of jovially, but in the middle of the day, this little creature was harboring up there, and I didn't disturb him. I do not know if it's a male or female, but that's our night security, so you have that going for you. And I think finally here is this is a drone shot. A friend of mine from Ellis, Alex Bagler, took this drone shot, so very, very photogenic. I think it's really neat. So that's the end of that. Mike, how would I get to videos? Or I might dispense with that because it's probably not. It's just you're going to see us all grinding away. But let me just explain. This is a 12-foot diameter saw that sits over there, and it cranks out. It drops. It cut these stones 2 inches wide, and it just rides 24 hours a day, and drops about half an inch each pass. So it takes a long time to go through those granite stones. And if there's nothing else, I'd just entertain some questions, but I appreciate your support and through this long process. Want to thank the county legal system, the county attorney's office, and I should say the district judge's office up there. They've been very patient with us. There's been a little bit noise at times, but we worked around them, and they've been very good to us, so we appreciate their help on that thing. No
Dustin,
other questions?
No questions. This looks like a good project. I appreciate you guys preserving our history.
Okay, thank you.
Guy, you said you still want to replace some of the limestone?
The limestone, yes, we've got to take on the deck part. We're not going to have the funding. We're going to get the goal we reached, but we're not going to have the funding to do the retaining wall on the south side of the courthouse. But we'll get some professional opinions, and maybe a situation that might be something that you just maybe lightly sandblast. But when we do those things, it's going to be very imperative that we follow these with routine sealers over the course of time, maybe like about every 10 years. We're going to have to put some sealers in there, because if that water gets in those cracks, it's just going to fracture them. So, and we hope there will be a little money left over to maybe help that out.
Thank you, Guy, for everything
Thank you.
you've done.
You Guy?
Thank you.
Keep up the good work. Next item on the agenda is the Louis Kuhn 4th Edition Road Issue, Gary Wegley. Or Galen Romey, I guess.
Hello, Commissioners. My name's Galen Romey. I'm here representing Gary and multiple owners in the L. Kuhn 4th Edition. That edition was put in 2010, and since then, the county had been maintaining it, and now the county has stopped maintaining the roads. We've got multiple businesses out there. today we did a quick count, and there's over 45 jobs that are operating out of that development every day. And the roads are getting pretty bad. We've got some heavy truck equipment, 40-foot containers rolling through there, and then we have some $1 million-plus fire trucks going in and out of there, and it's kind of rough on them with the ruts. Give you a little history. This plat was put in, like I said, back in 2010, and at that time I was helping the owner, Mr. Louis Kuhn, put the plat together. He hired his attorney, which was Tom Wassinger. He hired Harvey Reuter to do the surveying. He's put in all the electric, all this water, which it is looped rural water district. And then I helped him shepherd it through the plating process. I went to the county to find out what the process was, and they said we have a joint Ellis County Planning Commission, Ellis County and the City of Hayes, and you just take it to them, and they go through and approve it. We did that process. I'm going to hand out real quick. Curiosity, we're just curious why the county did stop maintaining the road.
Bill Ring will touch on that in a little bit. Galen?
Okay. Well, I'm going to show you a little bit of what was given to us when we started the platting. This is just on the final platting.
Thank you.
It's not on the preliminary plat and zoning, which is already there. We went through all these steps. Tom Wassinger, Harvey Reuter, and Jesse Rohr from the city collaborated and reviewed it several times and made sure, they said they made sure that it was presented properly, everything was approved properly. At that time, they said that they'd take, because it was some kind of a venture where everything within the 3-mile radius of the city of Hayes, the city did the planning on, the zoning on. And I got done with all of these steps that I just handed out to you, and emailed Jesse and said, what else we got to do? He said, it's done, it's approved. A few months later, the county had or some of the property owners out there wanted to see about using the East Road, which was platted or dedicated half by Mr. Kuhn, waiting for the other half from the joining owner. The county said we could use that as an ingress-egress point, but the county would not maintain that. They would just maintain the roads that were built to county spec, which was done by Clem Carleen. I went into Road and Bridge Department, asked them for an ingress-egress agreement and seeing if we needed a culvert. The director at that time told me, no, you don't need it. The plat's been approved. You can just use it, but we will not maintain it. You can put your own gravel, rock, whatever you want in there for access on the back side. And since then, the county has stopped maintaining the road. And we're just here to find out what we need to do to get you to maintain it again, get back out there and help these businesses out.
I guess my first question is, Galen, why, when this was platted, you were asking for half of it for the Younger family to give half of their ground up when it's all on Louis Kuhn's ground?
Well, part of that is because if Louis Kuhn would have given all of it, and you continue south on the next half line, you would have jogs in the road. It's traditional to have the property owners do half and half. Whenever they plat their half, if they ever do, then you'd have your full, I think it's a 70-foot right-of-way on that one. So he's dedicated 35 feet, and Youngers would do their 35 feet at the time they would develop it.
But if Youngers aren't in favor of giving their half up, then that isn't, you don't have a road to ingress and egress out of. You have a half a road.
It was never required as the original platting.
Well,
It was
and Bill
granted.
Ring will touch on this. If I'm not mistaken, the original step would have been first the county approve it, then the city approves it, then it goes back to the county for final
At
approval.
that time, there was something, an agreement with the city and county, and John Bird was aware of that, and he's the one that, he signed off on all of this from the city side and says, he's told me there was no need for the county to be involved. We were running it for the county in the 3-mile radius.
And does the city want to maintain it then?
You'd have to ask them, but my understanding, it was an agreement between the city and county that they would take care of it in that 3-mile radius, but it would still be in the county. I don't know if Bill remembers any of that. That's been 10 years ago.
I wouldn't have any, at that point in time, I was not coming to county commissioner meetings.
Okay.
I don't have any recollection of that.
And the county
Is there
had,
anything that, has anybody checked the minutes of county commission meetings to?
I asked for
If there's any
some. I'm sure
reflection?
Bill might have some.
Bill does.
There were 2 people, at least, from the county that were represented on the Ellis County Planning Commission. So there was a county representation on that statutory committee.
Dustin, you got any questions for Galen?
No, I think I just want to hear from Bill what the situation is, see why we have stopped maintaining and go from there. I imagine that we have some sort of information from Bill. We got a little bit of information on our road tour, but I would like to hear from him as far as explanation. And I've seen the thing. We want to make sure we're taking care of these jobs out there, but I also want to make sure that everything was done properly from the start.
Okay.
Butch, any questions for Galen?
No, no questions.
Okay. Bill?
Evening, Commissioners. Bill Ring, Public Works.
Thank you.
I put a somewhat of a chronological order together of the basics of what I've found out about this piece of property. I will interject that I believe with this planning commission that Mr. Romey is referring to, that's city only. There's no county. We have our own planning and zoning commission.
Per the Hayes Municipal Code, they have 2 people who live in the 3-mile zone
Okay.
who are on their planning commission.
The reason we stopped maintaining it was, and I have tried for over 2 years now to come up with a solution, is this piece of property was never approved by the county. The plat was never approved, which makes it private property. The county cannot work on private property, both by statute and for a liability standpoint. If we had a grader working on that road and it got into an accident, the first thing the insurance company is going to ask is, why are you working on private property? In this packet, I laid out, there's a brief history of the Coon 4 edition. It is located in the 3-mile zone, or the ETJ as they refer to. Back on May, I believe it was the 17th, which are somewhere in the beginning of May of 2010, I contacted Jesse Rohr from the city Public Works Department to try to get a little bit of history about this. And so on page 1 is some excerpts that this is what he sent me about what happened at the meeting. And in the yellow highlighted area, it says it was agreed that the developer would build a half-dedicated roadway with a maintenance agreement in place with the county to be maintained by the property owners until it officially becomes a county road. That was never done. Okay? Then the next sentence, it refers to Terry Claycamp and Jim Fouts asked what mechanism would be instituted that this requirement and how it would be enforced. Terry Claycamp pointed out that the road would not be to county standards. Jesse Rohr answered that the county would handle the enforcement. I'm not sure what enforcement they were talking about. If you go to the next page in the yellow, It says there was a motion by Jim Fouts with a second by Pam Ryan to recommend to the county commission to approve the final plat of the El Coon 4 addition contingent. There is a maintenance agreement with the county. It was never presented to the county, nor was there ever a maintenance agreement developed. Which is why, if you look at the last page of this document, the large sheet of paper, that is from the Register of Deeds, and that is the plat of Coon 4. The county never signed off on that. If you go to page 3, there's 3 references on page 3 and 4 of where it came up to the county commission. I contacted County Clerk Maska's office and had their staff spend a lot of time researching anything they could find in any records or in the county minutes where it referenced Coon 4. And at the July 6th meeting, it says the Hayes Area Planning Commission has approved this zoning change on a vote of 5-4. It says the commissioners requested a copy of these minutes. Then it says Deal, which would have been Commissioner Glenn Deal at the time, felt that since this area is located in Commissioner Barron's district, they need input from him on this rezoning request. Commissioners tabled the discussion and no action was taken. The following week, July 12, 2010, they talked about it again. And nothing was done. It was never brought up for the commission to vote on by the City of Hayes, much the same as we recently did with the Blue Sky Edition. The City of Hayes needs to present that to you, not me, for approval. And then if the commission does in fact approve it, as you gentlemen did with that development, then it goes back to the City of Hayes where they reaffirm your decision, and you need the 2 yes decisions before the plat can be approved. That was not done. Then we fast forward to September 7th of 2010, and there was a brief bit of conversation about it, and again, nothing was talked about, and it was not presented to the commission to ever accept the plat. Okay? Then at the bottom of that page, we forward to 12/9 of 2010. This is from the City of Hayes minutes. The city asked their commission to approve Resolution 2010-026 accepting the final plat of Coon 4. It passed 2-0. And I've also put a copy of the agenda from that, and then the next page would be the minutes where, in fact, they did accept it. But they accepted something that our commission never approved. Some of the concerns that staff has looked into were the roads built to county standards. We have no knowledge of that. We don't know who engineered them. Staff was never asked to inspect the completed roads. Should the roadways be asphalt or concrete due to the volume, as Mr. Romy referred to, of the large amount of truck traffic that's on it? Should there be a second entrance to provide access to emergency response vehicles during a fire or medical emergency? Semi-trucks have gotten stuck on the roadway going into development, blocking other businesses' access to their property. Right now, there's approximately 2,100 feet of road surface that's going to the south from Old 40 and then going back to the east to where it would intersect with the what's known as the half roadway. So I have worked and spent many hours on this. I've met with most of the property owners over there. I've given them a little less formal copy of all this. They've had it for years. Some of the businesses he referred to, I've talked to other people that are over there. And as I tried to emphasize, my position has got to be protecting the best interest of Ellis County and keeping us out of any kind of litigious situation. And so working on private property, again, which is a violation of statute, is not in the best interest of Ellis County.
So in your opinion, is it up to the developer to bring the road up to specs? I'm guessing it is if it was never approved by the county.
We have no records I understand that Mr. Carleen built the roads. I don't know that he ever got copies of our engineering designs on those. There's no records of that. I have no records, and no one has any recollection of ever being asked to come over and look at them. And likewise, they haven't been maintained.
And we still have an issue of a second entrance.
Correct. And the fact that there was never maintenance, again, what the motion referred to, I mean, it was very specific as far as we're concerned, contingent that you approve it. Contingent that you approve it on a maintenance agreement. I have no record of that. No one ever remembers Mr. Kuhn or anyone else ever coming over to discuss such. And I've asked about it for, 2 years. That these things were never done. I mean, if they are, if somebody could bring me more paperwork, show me I've missed something or there's a record somewhere, but conversations that occurred, and unfortunately, Mr. Graff passed away. He's no longer with us. I don't know who said what to who, if anything was said. So I have to rely on the minutes, or the records that we have in place.
Understand? I think you did your homework, it looks like. Questions for Bill? Justin, Butch?
No, I do agree with you, Bill, 100% on the liability issues. We have to contend with liability on any time we're on property, so we need to well be.
I mean, a second
respect that.
entrance out there would definitely be nice. I know, one day I talked to Mr. Wegley when I think somebody was stuck in the middle of the addition and nobody could ingress or egress, which creates a hazard. And
that's something, and I'm just going to say this, that through conversation, I was given the impression from the owners that I spoke to that they expect one, that was part of the project, so that emergency vehicles would be able to get in, and also traffic would be able to flow through, go in one way and out the other. Again, there's nothing in writing that they can provide to me saying that, but it would only make sense that, in a development like that, with the amount of traffic and the type of business, that they would want to be able to move traffic through. And also, we could get our emergency personnel in there should there be a situation arise, fire, medical emergency, whatever.
I guess if each lot was made 5 foot smaller, you'd have plenty of room for the whole road right in the addition. Plenty of room, actually.
Bill, do you have any kind of indication of why we would have started maintaining these roads? I mean, I think that would be something I would like to find out, if they were done and then we were maintaining for a certain period of time until we found out the legal wasn't correct and then we needed to not have our equipment on there. That would be my concern from the county's portion, is why did we start, and then when we found out that it wasn't done properly.
I stopped it.
Okay.
Okay, when I found out we had a possible issue, I reached out to the various people. I reached out to the city of Hayes, and I've done this for 2 years. I provided copies of the same documentation to everyone there, but I felt in the best interest of the county that we step away, because we now knowingly, maybe just like Mr. Omi pointed out, there was an assumption that this was passed.
Right.
Okay, so they assumed, okay, this is okay, let's maintain it. Well, now we know that we shouldn't be in there because it is not right away.
Right.
It's private property. I would feel that if I had allowed it to continue and something occurred, it's on Bill.
Right.
Because I know we shouldn't be in there. I didn't know that when I got there the first day, but through my first year of going through things and trying to discover, and understand the operation, again, with no history, because the passing of Mr. Graff, you know,
So everything you've pulled up obviously come out of our minutes that you've presented.
and the cities.
The city's correct. And just to make sure I'm on the same page, or the same chain of events, the proper procedure should have been, just like it was for Mary Alice's addition, county approval, city approval, back to the county.
Other way. City Planning
Or
Commission,
city, then the
County
then
Commission,
back.
to the
Yes.
City Commission.
Well, that's how it should have been done, correct?
Right. The city really never should have taken this on without the counties having signed off on it.
Exactly.
It should have never got to the meeting of December 2010 at the city.
Exactly, because the county never had. So we
Right,
don't-
and I mean, you can look at, I mean, there's lots of signatures on that, but there's nothing where the county commission. And in speaking with County Councilor Jeter, for us to take on a roadway, when we accept the plat, we have to accept what's called the dedication. Okay? That's what determines that we take it on. So we never received this, so therefore, why would we maintain something that's not something that's a requirement? Because it's not a county right-of-way. We did not accept, or you, I should say, the commissioners at the time, did not accept the plat and dedication.
Hang on one second.
So, Bill, is there anything legally, I understand there's other issues, but is there anything legally to prevent us from accepting the plat now, if the commission chose to do so?
I don't believe so. It would have to, if I understand this, it would have to go back, whether it would have to go to the planning and zoning again at the city, but the city would have to present it, not me. The city would have to come and present.
Right, but presumably this was passed by the Hayes Area Planning Commission 9.5 years ago. They could come in front of the present county commission, present this, sort of make it all okay after the fact.
Right.
I'm guessing you would also have some requirements that you would want to see in order for that to happen for maintenance purposes.
Correct. But,
Have to be built to county specs for one.
and that begs the question, which spec do you want for that addition with heavy truck traffic? Do you want a dirt road, a rock road, a paved road, a concrete? I mean, and then the cost and then the maintenance on it. So, and then we also have to deal with the contingency that's in there, this agreement. I'm not sure what they meant by that, other than there is none, but that would have to be dealt with because that was part of the motion. For you to approve it was contingent on having this maintenance. Now, that half road has never been opened up at all. It's got barricades across it, and it's dirt and mud and weeds. So it's never been available for anyone to use as a non-right-of-way, call it an alley, call it a private, whatever.
That would also have to be built to county specs, wouldn't it? No?
No, because it's 60 foot, there's only 30, I believe there's only 30 foot there on the half.
Other 30 you don't worry about?
Well, we can't, I mean, it would have to be, the younger
developers.
property that would be to the east, we would have to, like, condemnation or something. I mean, if you actually wanted to do that, eminent domain or however that might work. If they're not willing to sell the property, and then who's going to pay for the property?
Okay. Anything else to add, Phil? No. Okay, we'll probably have to visit with legal counsel on this further and see, because if it was never built to county spec, how do we know what we're getting, for one? Two, what's gonna be the cost? Well, it'll be up to the developer to bring it to county spec anyway. Wouldn't be up to us, would it?
I would believe that would be your choice, not mine.
If we had to go in and rock all that. Of course, again, you got heavy truck traffic, you got vehicles weighing 80,000 plus. Is your rock road gonna stand up to that? I guess you put in heavy enough rock base, it would. And what's it gonna cost is the next thing. You said 2,100 feet of road?
Mm-hmm. Little less than half a mile.
Sure. Okay. Thank you, Bill. We'll visit with Phil and Bill and proceed further. Galen, you have something to add?
Regarding his first point regarding the half road, I remember that meeting, and I think one word got changed or misspelled. It was agreed that the developer would build. I remember that being, it could build it if they wanted to use it, and he would have to gravel it and maintain it, or the people out there had to. That didn't happen. And Bill, yes, we did have access in there. When I went to the predecessor, he said, I don't need to get a culvert, I don't need to have an ingress-egress agreement, because the plat was approved. So we told the people out there, they can use it, if they want to gravel it, they can go gravel it, and for a while they were using it, till somebody put a barricade up. Going on to page 2, no maintenance agreement was ever presented. When I went into Mike, he never said a thing about needing a maintenance agreement. So we just assumed didn't need it. Moving on to the
But the maintenance agreement was contingent on them getting the approval, so you can't do it without it.
and we weren't responsible for bringing that to the county. We believe it was brought to the county, and they, because they wanted to delay for Vernon, and then they never bring it back on their own. Regarding the building of the roads not to spec, why did the county then start maintaining them? It was built, and they just went out and started maintaining them as soon as it was done. So they must have felt under their program at the time that it did meet specs.
Well, I think there was, until Bill researched it, we didn't know it was still a private edition, and we'd never approved it, or before any of us was here, actually, but
It never formally got approved, but they did accept
it
maintenance.
never came to the county, Galen. Nobody approved it. The city approved it, the county's never seen it.
And that's where the
So again, you got he
discrepancy
said, he
comes.
said, and now you're assuming, we both mean, you both know what that word assume means. So we'll bypass using that word and we'll go right to the point, the county never approved it.
I'm going back to, again, what we were told. The city's in charge of that 3-mile area. And that was what we were told, and the county acted accordingly like it was an approved plat all these years. So actions also speak volumes of words.
Well, I guess if we'd known it had been approved, we would be maintaining it, but it has not been approved, so.
And all we're asking is that the county start maintaining it again, because they have stopped, and all that's doing is causing the road that was, we feel, built to county specs, it's deteriorating, and it's not getting at county specs anymore because of lack of maintenance.
You feel it was built to county specs. What specs did we use to build it?
Mr. Kuhn hired Clem Carleen, he's built roads, and he built them, and the county came over and started maintaining it. That action alone tells me they accepted it.
Again, nobody approved it, so. We'll visit with Bill Jeter and Phil Frother and we'll come back with what we're gonna recommend.
I think the biggest issue here is our liability. We can't have somebody on private property and assume that liability until we figure out the legal here, because I would say the biggest thing we need to look into is Galen's point of, was there some sort of difference in the law and the agreement at the time? And I imagine, Bill, has there been any change in how this would be processed over the last 10 years?
I don't believe so.
No.
So I say let's figure that out, and then I think we readdress it. We figure out what we can do to possibly take care of these businesses, and where there was a mix-up between the city and the county and the developer, and figure out a way to take care of them. I think that's something that we need to do, but it obviously can't be at our costs initially. We don't have the funds to do this, and we got to make sure anytime our equipment's going on any road that it is our road to take care of.
At the end of the day, if we're gonna take care of it, it has to be re-engineered and built to our specs. That
We'll
isn't,
figure
that
that out.
isn't our issue to maintain, I mean, that isn't our issue to pay for all that.
Yeah.
Basically, it was built without we ever approving it. And none of us three was here, obviously. Bill Jeter was the only one here at the time. But, I mean, again, it goes back to, we don't even know what it was built to. I know Clem Carling's built roads forever. He's a great dirt contractor, but whose specs did he use? We don't know that answer. I mean, this is all great, what Bill put together, what Galen gave us is a lot of good information, but at the end of the day, we don't know what specs anybody used. That's what it boils down to.
Right. And I think we need legalese, some sort of legal reason to get back out there and start maintaining. So, my hope would be that they could go to their lawyers and figure out what Bill's missing, because sounds like for a couple of years, nobody's brought you what you're missing, and therefore we can't do anything.
Well, I don't know that I'm missing anything.
Yeah,
I
he's
was
got it.
trying to find out, did they have more information than I did? Something
Right.
in writing that was giving me more information that what I found was incomplete,
Right.
okay? But again, it still has to go through the process. It never should have gone to the city, according to the way things are supposed to be. The city of Hayes should never have approved it because this
County, yeah.
body did not approve it.
Right.
Okay? The other thing I will add, just for point of reference, and this has got, it's nothing against the people there, the owners or whatever. This is not the only road I've done this with for the protection of Ellis County. Up on Riverview Road, where it dead ends at 230th, we were maintaining what again, I've only been out there 3 years. What was assumed to be a county right-of-way. Upon researching it, it was not. It's a lease road. We'd maintained it for years. I said, we can't be back there. If something happens, it's going to be on us. And I talked to the owners, and I explained it to them. I said, there's a variety of things you can do, but it's not a county road. There is no right-of-way. There is no easement. If you would like to come to the commission, you can come talk to them about it, whatever, but it's a lease road to get back to oil wells. I cannot have county equipment maintaining anymore. The liability is too great for you folks, should something occur. And there's more examples of that. I don't want the county to be in a bad position. I've always felt that way. So it's got nothing to do with anyone in particular other than protecting my employer.
Right.
Thank you for all your information, Bill. And we'll have
Appreciate that, Bill.
Mr. Jeter and County Administrator look into it further.
Thank you.
Thank you, Galen, for all your information, too. We'll move on to budget updates. County Administrator Philip Smith-Haynes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, the County Commission on April 15th was scheduled to provide some direction to staff regarding their first round budget proposals for 2020. You elected to defer until some additional information had become available. You also asked for some information, Commission Chair Hazelhorse asked for some information about staffing. I've provided that information. I also passed out something else in the way of more information here this evening that I will get to in a minute. In addition to that, the commission had been having some discussions about potential sales tax, and you directed me to check with the cities regarding their opinions on sales tax, whether it should be 0.25% or 0.5%, and whether or not it should be shared with cities as general sales taxes are pursuant to state law. I have received responses from 3 of the 4 cities that are in conformance with each other. They all recommended a 0.5 cent sales tax, with cities retaining their portion. Did not receive a response from the city of Hayes to that question. However, and I've passed this out to commissioners this evening as well. I did receive on Friday a letter from the City of Hayes regarding the excess proceeds from the half-cent sales tax that expired last September 30th. The City of Hayes is requesting their share of that funding that we have been holding on to pending completion of further projects. So the other item that I said I would refer to in a minute is an update to the 5-year financial forecast. This is based on 2 new pieces of information that I just got on Friday after the agenda had already gone out. The first of those is I got the motor vehicle tax estimates for 2020. They were only slightly higher than the previous forecast. But the second thing was that I got some preliminary numbers from the auditors about beginning unencumbered cash balance. And I'm sure that the auditors would want me to emphasize to you that those are not final numbers. They are still in the process, and they were provided as a courtesy and subject to change. But as of what we know on Friday, it looks like the beginning cash balance for 2019 was $586,878 better, higher than what was in the previous forecast. So that obviously affects where we start, affects where we end, affects all the numbers going forward. The other thing that has changed in this forecast before you this evening is the expenditures for 2020 are down a little bit because your commission provided direction that we should have only a cost of living increase for employee salaries in 2020, not step increases. So the combination of that, better cash balance, slightly higher motor V estimates, and lower expenditure forecast means that we're going in the right direction. Currently, the projected ending cash balance for 2020, given all those assumptions, is a little over $2.5 million, which is significantly higher by $1.5 million higher than where we were back in February, and about $700,000 higher than where we were just a month ago. So definitely heading in the right direction. However, you can see there that our target number for that ending cash balance is about $3,052,000. So we still have a gap of slightly under $500,000. And of course, there are remaining unknowns regarding health insurance costs, our final assessed valuation, and of course, whatever room there would be for a mill levy increase under the tax lid, and then the final amounts for outside agencies. All of those remaining unknowns should become known about a month from now, mid part of June. But that is where we are this evening. So I look forward to answering any questions from the commission, hearing your discussion about any additional direction regarding sales tax moving forward, and then any other items that you would care for me to take back to departments with regard to revisions to preliminary 2020 budget numbers.
You said the final assessed evaluation won't be till June, middle of June?
We'll have it June 1, per state law, but yeah, all three of those things will be mid-June, because assessed value will be first, then we'll
Health insurance?
get the health insurance numbers, and then we'll get the outside agency funding. So
Okay. Dustin, anything you'd like to add?
Phil, quick question. On these projections, have you taken into account any decrease in our health insurance compensation on these? Is that in that projection? Okay.
No, I haven't messed with the health insurance costs at all, so they're still the 2019 health insurance costs, both for the rate and the county's percentage. So I understand the commission has given direction that the county's contribution rate will be adjusted down for 2020, but I also anticipate that the rate will go up. So
Perfect.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Other than that, not really any questions. I think this was predictable as far as the sales tax, and that's something I'd like, to discuss with you guys right now. I think we all know that Shinshin, Ellis, and Victoria, lack for capital for road infrastructure and things of that nature. So, about any time that we start talking about touching a sales tax, they're typically okay with it for their portion, and they collected their portion on the sales tax for our building infrastructure and stuff like that. And so now that that's gone away, I think a funding stream has gone away for them too. But I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on a tax for roads. It's my contention that we're going to struggle to pass a sales tax that in the county for roads without having the city of Hayes on board with it. And I think for good reason, we haven't got a letter from the city of Hayes. It's because they don't need money, and it's not necessarily something they want to go out and sell to try and save us. And that has been the conversations I've had with city commissioners is, if you guys need to do something, do it on your own. Don't get us involved, with the few that I've talked to. So, but that being said, as I've alluded to before, I think the best option and something that maybe isn't well known in our budget is that we have an extremely high level EMS service. And that's a level of service that isn't provided in all of western Kansas that I know of besides us. It's a 2-paramedic service. It's on-call duty. In most of the rural counties in western Kansas, if you call 911, there's not somebody sitting there ready to get in a truck and go save you, and especially not a paramedic, not a couple of paramedics. So it's a high-level service. I really like that we offer it because I feel like Ellis County is a good retirement community. I think that it ties into retirement for people. It ties into our health services as a total. And so while I would love to do, to help out the city of Ellis, the city of Shinshin, the city of Victoria, I think because we already do help them as a county with some of the throughways in their roads, for them, I think the best course for us would be a 1/4 cent sales tax dedicated to our high-level EMS service. With that, we collect the whole sales tax, but as I've said to many people who ask me about county roads, if we're able to keep the level of EMS service that we have and have all that sales tax dedicated towards it, it's 6 one way, half dozen another. We clear up some of our budget to do and help these small communities, and it gets really close to balancing our budget with that. But the other thing that I want to throw out there is I don't think that we should wait till 2020 to put that on a ballot. If legally we can do that in 2019, I think that we have nothing to hide. I think if anybody looks at our budget and they look at these financial forecasts, they know we're not hiding anything. And we can say, would you like us to keep the level of EMS service that we have? Or in 2020, do we have to make hard decisions? I feel like if we vote on it in 2020, I like the idea that this gets to be a business agreement between the people of Ellis County and us, of whether or not they appreciate or understand that function of our government. But my thought process is we get that on the ballot in 2019. We let them decide so that we aren't. My biggest fear of not having it on the ballot this year is that we go scorched earth on a couple of our departments, we lose some of our great employees, and we do it not knowing whether or not a sales tax will pass in 2020, and then we struggle to rehire. That's my biggest fear with waiting on this, and I think it will give us an opportunity to not have to do that in 2020 if we get on the ballot this year.
Anything else to add, Dustin? Is that it?
Not right now, nope.
Okay. Butch?
Well, I don't disagree with what you're saying, Dustin. However, I'm more in favor of a half-cent sales tax that would go into the general fund and would allow the commission discretion to use it as needed. In addition to that, we do have a high-level EMS service, but most of our county government operates at a very efficient high level. They're good employees. The departments are good. And I feel like if we hamstring ourselves by getting a dedicated sales tax just to EMS, that's exactly what we're doing. It's dedicated to EMS. If we have the half-cent sales tax, it'll be better received by the cities in Ellis County. And any monies they generate from that sales tax, that's money they don't have to levy against their property tax owners for projects they need to do too. So it has that edge to it also. And that's just kind of where I'm coming from that. I do agree we should probably get a vote on this as soon as we can get it. When we look at what we're looking at in 2021, 2022, it doesn't look good. So, but I'm in favor of the half-cent sales tax.
Thank you, Butch. I guess we're gonna have three different opinions tonight. Hey, which is good.
Yeah, it's good.
I'm with Dustin on it'd be nice to have it in 2019. I just don't know if we have enough time to do that. Phil, an opinion, do you think we would have time to promote it and educate the public by, really, it needs to be done by October. I mean, really. I'm just thinking of when I was involved with the last one, and so was Bill Ring and Tom Drees and Kerry and anybody else that was in this room. I mean, we spent a lot of time going from town to town.
I guess I have two different answers to
Sure.
that.
Yes and no.
Exactly.
There you go.
Anything is possible, and there's never enough time. So
There you go. That's the answer I was looking for. And I mean, I think it's possible if we just go with the $0.25 dedicated to EMS. Maybe we could have it on the November ballot. I mean, I think that is a possibility. I feel a half-cent is gonna take a lot more education. Because you have a lot more things you're gonna cover. I guess my biggest concern is, I mean, I wanna keep a high level of EMS. I mean, the city of Victoria has put a ton of money in a building over there, so we could bring the ambulance to that. I know my predecessor that has passed away, I mean, he worked day and night, as Bill Jeter can probably remember. Vernon Burns worked very hard on getting an ambulance to Victoria. And I guess I don't think it'd be fair at all to ask the city of Victoria to give that up if that's the way we decided to go to cut expenses. I would never vote for that ever. On the other side, Bill Ring's sitting out there, and he sends us more pictures today. Wasn't that today you sent the next road you closed? I believe that was today.
it was actually Sunday.
Or Sunday. Okay. That he sent that, and as Bill knows, I don't know how many roads we have in disarray in the county by now, but there's a bunch. I know I drive county roads every day, and unfortunately, they've done a good job, but they're gonna be busy all summer long fixing. And the other side of that is also, Bill has mentioned, we have a lot of bridges that are gonna need replaced in the next roughly 10 years. If we do a quarter cent, and either Dustin or Phil remind me, how much does a quarter cent bring in again? If we just.
About 1.6 million.
That's what I had 1.4, so okay, 1.6. If we did.
If we do a half-cent sales tax and we share, we only get 1.4.
And I think, again, that's the only way you're gonna get the cities on board, is if we share it with them. I guess I'm really concerned about road and bridge and EMS. I mean, EMS, if they got part of it, road and bridge got part of it, I mean, it definitely helps solve our budget problem. Because I don't know how much Bill Ring is gonna come and ask for in the future when he says all the roads that he's fixed and is still fixing, and he needs more money and he's out of money. So I think that's gonna be an ongoing issue. My biggest concern is his bridges. As you know, Bill, we can spend $1 million and don't get a lot. And I think we had about 10 bridges that could be up for either replacement and or a total rebuild, which is gonna cost millions. So how do we go forward? I mean, keeping the quarter cent ourselves, giving it to EMS to provide the service we want and Ellis County deserves, I think is a great idea. I also feel that road and bridge needs to be included in that somewhere. If we save EMS 1.6 million, is there gonna be another 1.6 million to go to road and bridge? I don't know that answer. If we have a half-cent sales tax, and I'd like to see it dedicated to road and bridge and EMS, I think that fixes a lot of problems. I don't think that's the answer. I mean, our department heads have done a great job. Phil, you've done a wonderful job in getting us to the point we're at on these projections we see for the next 5 years down the road. I mean, you've done an awesome job on that. Thank you for all your hard work and showing us what next year looks like and 2022 and beyond looks like, unfortunately. I think it's gonna be tough to promote it by November 1st or by the November election. I mean, I think it can be done like Phil just said. God bless you, Phil, great comment. I think it could be done, but we'd have to start on it June 1. That isn't going to give us many months, and I don't know that we could start on it by June 1. I think we could probably start on it by the middle of June, possibly, and have handouts ready. You went through this with us, didn't you? We went around and promoted the half cents. You were here.
No, I was here, but I wasn't part of that promotion.
Okay. But I know there's at least 3 individuals out there that went town to town, and I mean, Tom Drees understands, and Bill and Carrie all understand what was involved. And I guess I'd have to look at that time frame again, and I know Donna keeps everything, and Donna could probably pull that time frame up for us for the next meeting to look at what would have to be done, and Phil probably has access to that same thing, but we'd have to do a lot of work, guys. I mean, a lot of work between now and then. I think the only way we'd have a chance, I mean, Dustin, I mean, your quarter cent, has a lot of merit. And it may be easier to sell a quarter cent than a half cent. There's no doubt. I mean, it should be. I feel if it's promoted right to the public with a lot of good information, I think we could do a half cent also. But again, that's going to be divided up amongst the cities. So I guess, Don, I would like to see a time frame for the next meeting, what it would take to have it on the November election, if you could kind of bring the old time frame back up. Bill, is that something you can maybe assist with also? Just to see what time frame we'd have to, I mean, I'm thinking we're gonna have to start like June 1. I really do. And start getting it out and educating the public. And Mr. Drees, do you think that's a fair statement that we'd have to start by June 1-ish to June 15th, starting to educate the public. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm with you. We should have started 4 months ago. And on the November election, what's all going to be on the November election? I know city commissioners.
There probably will be a constitution amendment,
Okay,
It's city school.
City, school
improvement
district.
districts,
okay. So we'd have
extension district will
We'd
be on
have-
the November, 2 positions.
city commissioners, so we'd have about 5 items on there roughly.
Well, and that constitution amendment, I could get you a copy of that too.
I guess my concern is, and maybe you could look this up, what do you think, I mean, our voter turnout for an election like that?
City school, it's usually smaller.
I know.
You would have the option of doing a special election at any time too. But you've got some parameters working around a general election with a special election.
Yeah, with the cost, it would help.
Right.
Okay. But I know if we include it in the regular November election, we're already having an election. If it'd be the governor and president election, it'd be totally
Next year.
different. I know, that's, yeah, it's 2021, but that would definitely help, but I can see Dustin's point, Butch's point, if, get it on the election now, guys. And it also, if it passes, it definitely would help our situation out at hand. So I think, is that clear direction, Donna and Phil? For the next meeting, we'd like to see kind of a time frame of how this is gonna have to happen and how quick it's gonna have to happen. Dustin and Butch, you guys both all right with that?
Yeah, I would like to see legally what we need to do to get on the ballot in 2019 with either.
Okay,
But that being said, too, I want to go in a little bit to the budget here and discuss some of this stuff as we talk about a 1/4-cent sales tax. Our EMS budget right now is projected to be at a little over $3 million. So 1/4-cent sales tax won't touch it, and the only way it'll ever get close to touching it is if we slashed and burned in that department. So, my big thing, and this is the thing that I think where we're maybe lost in the commission in terms of money is if we do a 1/2-cent sales tax and we share with the cities, we do not have more money for county roads. We have $200,000 less money for county roads every single year. The other thing that I would like to discuss is, and something that we're going to have to talk with the voters in terms of whether or not they would support it, is if we would sunset this. With a road thing, we would most definitely have to sunset it. With EMS, I'm not afraid to talk about how great our EMS service is. I am afraid to do cutting on it. I think that there's a couple of big portions of our budget that need looked at again in this budget year, in the second round. For one, I think our sheriff's office, we have to ask for a couple more % on theirs to get us close. The thing I don't want to do is push us into another year and then have us make some really, really hard decisions in that budget cycle that will affect a lot of jobs. Mainly for the reason that I think we'll lose great employees right away because they don't want to work for a county that they're not sure if they have a job. So we could lose them in the interim. But those are my biggest concerns. I do understand getting the city behind some of this stuff. I can't think of anything that's more positive for Victoria and Ellis than an EMS sales tax, because those are the two municipalities that, for lack of better words, we overspend a little bit on. And that's okay. This is safety for them. This is something that was put through in the past. This is something that I think they obviously want us to offer this level of service. And We also are going to have a changeover at EMS because of retirement. So, you know, for Carrie, this will be something that, this is Carrie's life work. It'd be the start. You know, what a way that he would have to end it to talk to people about what he's built over all these years. But, you know, the thing I think is there's a reason why we don't have a letter from the city of Hayes. They don't want to get involved, and they are the bulk majority of citizens. They just, as far as I've heard from the ones I know, they don't need money for roads, and they would rather not have to talk about needing money for roads. And that's okay. I appreciate that from them. You know, I appreciate that they don't want to just raise taxes for the sake of doing other things because they want to. I like that they're trying to be conservative with those funds, and those were the conversations I was given. The other caveat to that is if we do an EMS sales tax, it goes to the public. That's what's the beauty of it. We don't need the cities to sell it to us. We can present information as our own, and the city commission in Ellis, Victoria, Shinshin, and Hayes, those commissioners' vote is no different than my wife's. We get to decide on a vote from the public on whether or not they feel like we need to do this. I think that we're going to have to be really tight through this budget process to create some trust. I think, like I said, that this budget proposal, even with what we've done right now, is already showing really dire situation. And I think the beauty of it for us three, especially on this ballot, is that we can see how the public feels about it. We can teach about what is an excellent service that we provide, top level, and we can ask the people of Ellis County if they want to maintain that service. And with the $1.6 million added to our budget, we don't have to talk about raising people's property tax. We are really close to balanced at that point. But without it, we really have to make tough decisions. And I can understand with a sales tax on buildings and the situation that you went through on that, I can understand that. I personally am not scared to try and teach people about our EMS service. I think either way it's going to be an excellent learning service for the county, and it'll be excellent that they get to see what we do, because even as a county commissioner, I had no idea the level of service that we offer. And because of that, coming in, my immediate thought process was, it's possible we're overspending here. But it's one thing that I guess, of all things, I'd be happy that we overspend on some public safety. And I think the people of Ellis County can have that business discussion with us.
Thank you, Dustin. Butch?
Well, I disagree with you, Dustin. I don't think we're overspending at all on public safety, especially with EMS. Anyone who's ever had to call our ambulance service in a dire emergency, a little bit of tax money is well worth the life they can save. You know, it's just not a contest. It's a no-brainer for me. And as a county commissioner, I'm never going to compromise that. That isn't going to happen. We might compromise staffing at other departments. We might compromise employee hours, but we're not going to compromise service that's going to affect the life and safety of people. Just isn't going to happen under my watch. And I don't want people to think that will happen either. We did put a new director. Is going to be on board, and I'm sure Jason is going to run that department as fiscally tight as he can and still maintain a high level of service. I have no doubt about that. You mentioned the EMS budget is $3 million. I believe they generate at least $1 million in revenues too. So they do bring in a lot of money to offset that $3 million. So I still like the idea of the half-cent sales tax with all of the counties involved. And then they can do with their portion of the sales tax as they wish, which in turn helps property taxes on that city end too.
Thank you, Butch.
I just want to make clear, what I stated was immediately my thought process was that we could be overspending. That isn't my opinion now. I don't think we're overspending. I think that it's an economic driver, a potentially big economic driver, as we have an aging population in western Kansas, and already great medical facilities in town. It was just what could be an immediate assumption. As I said, most of western Kansas doesn't have anywhere close to this. And, you know, probably this is one of my favorite quotes in the world, and it's from an economist named Thomas Sowell, is the first rule of economics is scarcity. There's never enough of everything to make everybody happy all the time. And the first rule of politics is to ignore the first rule of economics. And so we have to talk about where this money comes from. We have to talk about whether or not we're willing to levy tax if we truly feel that it is something we need, because it's something that most counties around us don't offer. But I think there's an economic driver there. I think that I agree with you, Commissioner Schleier. If we're going to overspend in something, I want it to be in public safety and public health. But at the same time, a half-cent sales tax is $200,000 less per year for us to take care of county roads, and that issue of scarcity just concerns me a little bit when we get to that discussion.
In regards to overspending, I don't think Ellis County overspends at all. I've read the newspapers the last couple of years. I've heard it referred to often as our department heads are just spending too much money, overspending money. They're trying to maintain the standard that the commission has set forth. And unless we want to lower that standard, it's up to us to fund it. But we're not overspending. We're trying to maintain a standard. I don't think you could find a department head here that says we're overspending. We're just trying to maintain a standard. And Ellis County is a good place. It's a good place to live. We should try to maintain high standards. And I guess I just don't like the word overspending. Maybe we can tighten the budgets in some areas, and in some instances, we just might have to slash some budgets and lower the standard completely. That might happen. But for the most part, our departments and our department heads do not overspend. None of them do.
Thank you, Butch. I agree with both of you on a lot of different things. Butch, I definitely agree with the overspending. I've sat through 8 years of this now, and I can say our department heads have went above and beyond the call all the time. Of every time we've asked to reduce, you know, Lisa Ree has done a good job. Becky Hersock has always volunteered from her department. Bill, you've been a trooper, and Carrie, everybody. Tom Drees, you guys all have been. Every department head in our county has done a great job when we've asked to cut. I know you've worked with Phil hand in hand, daily, weekly, monthly, to get to the point we're at, and that's why our budget already for 2020 looks favorable, thanks to what all you have done. Going forward, unfortunately, starting 2022, that changes that number, and the 1.6 million would fix it for 2023. It doesn't, or for 2022, excuse me, but then you still got to look at the big picture going forward. I understand that if we do a half cent, it is 200,000 less. I also understand working with Victoria, Shinchin, and Ellis, as they're part of Ellis County. It's not just us. They are part of Ellis County. They pay taxes like we do. They come over here and buy tags just like we do. They're part of Ellis County. They have projects like we do. We're gonna have a project in Victoria, as Bill Ring knows, on Cathedral one of these days. And we haven't even touched on that issue yet, how we're gonna fund that. That is going to be a large project one day on Cathedral. And also working with the city of Hayes. I think the city and county need to work together. We may not like everything the city does. The city doesn't like everything the county does, I'm sure. But we still, at the end of the day, we have to work with them. And I think that's where we need to form a relationship to where we trust each other, we work together, and going forward. I mean, the $0.25 definitely looks very enticing because it's going to keep 1.6 million in the county. The The half-cent butch also looks very enticing also. It's gonna short us a little bit on one end. We don't know that number. We use 200,000. We don't know that number. Depends upon what the actual monies, dollars that are spent in the county. It could be 50,000, it could be 300,000. We don't know that number. But I guess for next week, guys, all three of us need to come back with a solution after Donna and Phil provide us with a timeline. And what we're gonna decide to do, if we're gonna have it on the ballot in 2019. Everybody's gonna have to put their boots on, including department heads, commissioners, county administrator. We have a lot of work to do. I say November 1st. We have a lot of work to do. I've been through this, and so has everybody out there. Been through this. You guys know what it was like. And it was a great time to go meet all the people and all the surrounding communities and our town hall meetings we had here at the Legion and I think the VF too. But I mean, it was a lot of good questions came out of that. It was very eye-opening for me. Got to meet a lot of people in the county. It was a great deal in the county and city, you know, when we did that last time. So I think after we see the timeline, I guess by next week, guys, we need to decide if we're going to look at a quarter-cent, half-cent. And at that point, after we see the timeline, I think we need to decide next week and vote on it. Is that a fair statement, Phil? Next week?
Sure.
I mean, I think it needs
Works
to
for
happen.
me.
I mean, you guys all know it's roughly looking at 1.4, 1.6 million, which way we go, whether we include the cities or don't include the cities. So I think next week is the day. You both have 7 days to decide what you want to promote, or what you want to promote, but what you want to bring to the table. And we need to decide at that point. Looks like it could be a half, it could be a quarter, and somebody in the middle is going to have to probably make that deciding vote. But we'll see what next week brings.
I want to make sure that we're on the right wavelength here, because I think we've had a little bit of discussion about a half, but the idea of that discussion for the half is for roads and general fund, and that would be very difficult to do the instruction and teaching of what we do on roads and bridges. So that would likely not be put on this November, or if we decide to do a half, are we doing that? Or, I mean, I think for me, this is, from my perspective right now, this is my thought process. I want it to be something that people will pass, because otherwise we do have to lower our standards at EMS, we do have to lower our standards at the sheriff's office, or we have to raise property taxes. We definitely can't give raises at that point. We can't do a lot of the things that I imagine are in mind. But how do you guys feel? I mean, if we decide let's go with a half-cent sales tax for general fund purposes, likely it'll create about $1.4 million in revenue. I would be happy to let it go on the ballot, but I can tell you that I will not sell it. I will not be a person that thinks that a half-cent is necessary, and the only reason for that is because of the city of Hayes. They are doing fine financially, and they're the largest shareholder in a half-cent sales tax. They get over half of the money. So while I live in the city of Hayes, I live on the streets of the city of Hayes, I love the city of Hayes and care about them. I just struggle trying to raise taxes for them when they are not in a financial bind. So that's something I think we need to talk about or think about over the week, is as a conservative politician who's not here to try to raise taxes, what's the minimum we can raise them to cover our stuff and not lower our standards, and who actually needs money in Ellis County to continue running a good, successful government entity? Who needs it to govern properly?
Commissioner Ross, perhaps if the city of Hayes doesn't need that money, they can just lower their property taxes instead, if they don't need that money. if it goes into their coffers, if they get $1.5 million in their coffers, they can just lower the property taxes too.
I would have to look into the funding for the city of Hayes, but I know that their general fund is mostly funded through sales tax revenue. So this would just be in addition to that.
Sure.
And I know that, I imagine they can find projects to do with it. I just always want to come into things with restraint. And that's why I feel like a quarter-cent is enough, and any more, I just feel like I can't get behind. That just wouldn't be something I would be in support of.
I guess we're talking public safety. I mean, you've promoted that, Dustin, you've promoted that.
Commissioner, you could have the same questions posed to you. If you get 1.6 put into the EMS fund, again, what are you going to do with the money that we don't have to put into it now from the other sales tax? I mean, the same question is there. What are you going to do with that money? It's going to be in the general fund for you somehow.
Right. Likely, it would balance our budget, and I would hold the line. That's my answer to that. That quarter-cent would balance our budget, and I would promise to the people of this county, I wouldn't raise their property taxes, and I would hold the line.
As I say, it could be a pretty bold statement, not raising property taxes. Some of that's out of our control through mill levy and different things, but and assessments. But if we're going to talk public safety with that, you know, I'd be behind a sales tax if we're going to give it to EMS and we're going to give it to Road and Bridge. The general fund, I probably couldn't overly support funding it with sales tax, but I could. You're talking public safety. If we don't have roads, you can't get the EMS service there anyway. So if Bill starts closing roads next week and the ambulance has to drive 5 extra miles to get to so-and-so's house, you know, you're back to public safety. So my thought is it's going to go to Public Works and it's going to go to EMS. You know, asking Sheriff Harbin to cut, I believe you said 2% more, that's something he would have to address. I don't know where he's at on his budget exactly, and I don't think none of us do. But that's something he would have to address, and maybe he could address that next week, possibly for us too, or even this week with a phone call. So for next week, Commissioners, we kind of have 3 different opinions. We're going to have to come together as one, because if we're going to go out and tell the public how we feel, we can't have 3 different opinions. You have to be unified or you don't do it at all. At the end of the day, we have to be unified. That's just a fact of life. Like it, love it, or hate it, we got to be unified.
Mr. Chairman, you're talking about a half-cent sales tax for Public Works as well as EMS? Or you're
No.
talking about a quarter-cent?
I want to look at both numbers, Butch, and I'll decide that by next week. You know, part of me would like to do the quarter-cent and split it between EMS, but the problem being is it doesn't fix Road and Bridge. If we give half of that quarter-cent to EMS and the other half to Road and Bridge, it does not fix the problem at Road and Bridge at all. I mean, it just doesn't.
Mr. Chairman, I need to remind you how state law works.
Yes, sir.
So there is no splitting of a county-only sales tax with Road and Bridge.
So we can't give half to EMS and half to,
No, sir.
Let's be dedicated.
has to be
It
totally
has to be
dedicated.
dedicated to
Either way.
public health services, one of which is EMS,
Huh?
one of which is not Public Works.
Okay, thank you.
You could put it in to, for example, it could defray the cost of your contribution to High Plains Mental Health. It could fund the health department. You could do other things with it, but Road and Bridge is not one of those things.
Not one that you can use it on,
They-
really.
General purpose sales tax, then
Okay.
it is by definition split with the cities.
Okay,
Unless you seek special legislation, and you ain't doing that by November.
you got that right. Maybe by 2 years from now. Okay, thank you for clarification on that, Phil. I thought we could dedicate each to half, but we cannot. Okay.
I think the beauty on this quarter cent sales tax is something that I want to reiterate is it's a likely $1.6 million in revenue to the county, but it will not fund our EMS. Our EMS spends much more than that. So that $600,000 would go directly towards EMS, and us as commissioners can then, if extra funds are available, put more funds towards public works, which has been beat up, I think, relatively heavily since 2012.
Before that even.
And I'd also like to say, I don't feel the county overspends on anything either. Likely because we've held the line on a budget dollar for dollar since 2012. However, that was still spending down capital the entire time. So we went on a liquidity burn. Eventually, we have to be on an asset burn unless the people of Ellis County would like to keep the level of EMS service that they have. And that's the only reason I think that a dedicated sales tax is vitally important. I also see it as an economic driver, and that's probably the largest portion for me in my mentality as a conservative person. The idea that we can make that something special about Ellis County and attract retired people to our county. We can do a lot of talking about this, and I think that Carrie and Jason would do a much better job of talking about the level of EMS that we provide. And I imagine they could do that. I don't know if those guys would be willing to prepare themselves, maybe next meeting, to talk about the difference of an EMT service versus a paramedic service, what the difference between an EMT and a paramedic is, and what exactly you guys do. Why can a paramedic save my life when I'm having a heart attack much better than an EMT because of their ability to treat me on scene? So those are the things that I think need to be talked about, because I'm with you, Butch. I don't want to have to lower our expectation for that. But eventually we got to ask, where is this money coming from?
Okay, thank you, Dustin. Butch, anything else?
No, nothing.
Okay. Guess you guys all,
So then,
okay, go ahead.
that was one issue regarding the budget. Does the commission have opinions about how I should respond to the letter from the city of Hayes?
Good question.
Thank you. I thought so.
I forgot that, actually.
They might ask that, huh? I think I'll start on this. So we're about to start the elevator project, I imagine any day now. We did start the project in EMS building as far as getting the gym set up, correct?
Yeah, the studs are installed. I saw them myself.
Okay. So we have one more big question mark, I think, that's coming along our way. It's some water issues over the jail police department area. That's a little bit of a scare for me, and as they can see by our projected budget, there's not a lot of funds to setting around if we have to fix something like that. My proposal, guys, there's probably about 1.1 million-ish left in that fund.
About $1 million, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, I can't imagine that a roof would cost, I believe we've done some preliminary estimates of about $300,000 if we have to replace the entire roof. I doubt that's the case, but my thought, guys, is it possible, Phil, that we cut them a check for half of what they would be entitled to now, hang on to the additional funds just in case until we figure out what's going on with this, and then when we do, let's finish that project. That would be my thoughts. What's your guys's?
That was my thoughts initially, too. We can do half, and Phil can write them a letter accordingly to that we'd be willing to cut them a check for half, but until we finish our last project, because that roof, I mean, who knows what they'll run into when they do the roof. It might be $300,000, it might be 400,000, we don't know what time they replace everything, what we could run into. So I think half is fine.
I can go along with that.
Yeah, water damage scares me, but I hate to hold that
Exactly.
money hostage, and I imagine they have things that they can do.
Yeah. That'd be fine, Phil, if you're directed on that.
Okay, I'll respond accordingly.
Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, they would have been asking.
Anything else? No one? County Councilor Bill Jeter.
County Councilor Bill Jeter, I've scheduled a tax foreclosure sale for June 18th at 10 o'clock in the morning. Be in the third floor courtroom at the Ellis County Courthouse. You're all welcome to attend. In advance of that sale, the county administrator, sheriff, Amanda Shannon from the treasurer's office, and myself will take a road view of the properties that will be subject to the sale, and we'll come back and make a recommendation to the commissioners if there's any of those properties that you might consider bidding in the amount of the taxes, interest, and penalty at the time of the sale.
Okay.
And I will keep you
And I
updated
know
on
this
that.
number will change between now and June. How many properties are we looking at presently?
And I think we've got 7.
Okay.
And I'm guessing there may only be 4 that end up actually on the sale date.
Okay. Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome.
That's that all?
Yes.
County Administrator Report, Philip Smith Haynes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple items this evening. First off, just letting the commission know that we have found out through Senator Moran's office that the build grant is open again for this summer. So we're going to shoot for an application for the Northwest Business Corridor project through that. That involves an extensive amount of work. So Bill Ring and I, plus our consulting engineer, whose contract I finally have and will be bringing to you next Monday, the 3 of us will be working very diligently on that for the next couple of months, along with some other folks. We're getting together a meeting of stakeholders and might be asking you to reach out to contacts for letters of support and that sort of thing. The second item, while I'm inquiring about Public Works, there are a couple of vacancies out there right now, and Mr. Ring and I were talking about that earlier this afternoon. The commission has said a couple of different things over time with respect to hiring, so I just wanted to clarify that at the present time, for those positions where they're proposed for funding for the 2020 budget, that there's no problem with us going ahead and going through the hiring process, right? These are
The equipment
not
operators.
for anything that you would. No, these are for environmental office
Okay.
and for an office manager position.
Okay.
So they are not equipment operators, but they are critical to the
Mm-hmm.
continued
Operations.
operations. So
I don't have a problem with that. Dustin?
No, I don't have a problem with that.
Butch?
No, no problem.
okay,
I think
thank
it's
you.
good.
Just wanted that clarification.
Okay. Anything else? County Commission reports, Butch?
No, I don't have any report.
Dustin?
No report from me. The only thing I have to say is I'm excited about the build grant opportunity. I will be reaching out to senators and Congress people to make sure that they do as good as they can to talk about the importance of that project out there. I still think it's highly important. It's also something that I think the city of Hayes should consider the possibility of helping with funding, especially with the travel center. Likely, we won't collect tax on that travel center for quite a few years. And so we're not much of a beneficiary of this road, but the city of Hayes could be a large beneficiary of it, and so I think they should discuss in their meeting the potential of funds as we keep going through this process. But as always, you know, I really appreciate everything that they do down there. I think discussion on this is something that is probably in the works already. So that's all I have from me.
Thank you. I really don't have much either. I met with a few of the stakeholders out in the Northwest Corridor part, but nothing really to report as of yet. Next item is a executive session.
How long do you want that for, Dean?
10 minutes, you think?
You're the one who had the conversation.
Yeah.
If you guys don't mind, let me look at the text he sent me before the meeting, and then I'll tell you
Okay.
about how long. Yeah. Go 7 o'clock. Give us 15.
Okay.
15 minutes.
I'd make a motion that we go into executive session for the discussion of acquisition of real estate for a possible expansion of the landfill. Included would be Administrator Phil, Councilor Jeter, and Bill Ring, and the Board of Commissioners for 15 minutes.
I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second now to go into executive session for a period not less longer than 15 minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you all. No action, Donna, and the time is 7 o'clock. We will adjourn. Thank you all for coming. A lot of good discussion.
Yeah.
Oh, hell, that pen stays here.